There is a prevailing consensus in contemporary commentary that we are living through an age of anger. Analysts point to an erosion of rational order, arguing that objective debate has been replaced by an erratic, emotional breakdown in global politics. Right-wing populist movements in Western democracies are the most frequently cited evidence of this emotional takeover. Major geopolitical ruptures are routinely diagnosed as symptoms of pervasive conflict and deep-seated political unhappiness. This phenomenon easily crosses ideological lines. Left-wing populist movements frequently rise to power by explicitly responding to public frustration over austerity and economic hardship. Political science and media commentary consistently treat this surge of feeling as a defect, a failure of logic, or a deviation from objective, rational debate. Treating emotion as a bug in the political system is a mistake. It blinds analysts to the actual mechanisms driving modern global power dynamics. Media scholar Karen Wall-Jorgensen argues that emotionality and rationality do not exist in a binary opposition. Instead, emotion is a highly structured, performative tool engineered by media ecosystems. The feelings expressed in public serve a specific function. They reflect and reinforce existing hierarchies of status and power. Media networks utilize these emotional structures as the primary interface for mobilizing collective action. The task of modern political analysis is to decode emotion as the primary operating system of public life. To understand political emotion, we have to discard the idea that human feeling is purely a biological reflex. The classical cognitive psychology model views emotion as an individual physical response. It's defined by a stimulus, physiological arousal, and a subjective internal feeling. Philosopher Brian Massumi separates this process. He defines affect as a raw bodily sensation, an intense physical reaction without any conscious orientation. Emotion is the sociolinguistic mapping and narrativization of that raw bodily affect. This transition represents a conscious, relational interpretation of affect, one that is entirely shaped by cultural interaction. By naming and structuring the feeling, an individual translates a private biological response into a shared social meaning. Because emotion is socially constructed, it acts as a manipulable bridge between a citizen's internal biology and the public political reality. Historian William Reddy categorizes these public expressions as emotives. When an emotion is expressed publicly, it functions as a performative speech act. This public expression actively alters the world and the people inhabiting it. These powerful public expressions generate what sociologists call feeling rules. They establish rigid normative baselines, actively rejecting behaviors that conflict with the established pattern. When feeling rules are enforced at scale, they establish the dominant emotional regimes for a specific historical era. Therefore, whoever possesses the platform to articulate emotives dictates the acceptable boundaries of political reaction for the entire society. We often assume journalism operates purely on the objective transmission of rational facts. In reality, news media systematically relies on a strategic ritual of emotionality as a foundational production practice. Reporters routinely ask sources how they feel. This deliberately generates narrative drama and elicits audience compassion. Factual frameworks depend entirely on this emotional scaffolding to become legible to a mass audience. This 2005 front page uses descriptors like forlorn and frightened to frame the objective disaster of Hurricane Katrina within a narrative of national scandal. The media's heavy reliance on negative emotions like fear and worry over positive ones is a patterned, institutionalized choice. These supposedly neutral media institutions are the primary engineers establishing our shared emotional repertoires. The positive or negative valence of an emotion does not strictly determine its political value. Ugly or dark emotions are not inherently destructive to political progress. Plotting positive versus negative emotion against destructive versus constructive action, negative emotions like fear are frequently weaponized to generate exclusionary bonds against another. Anger has a dual nature. Plotted in the destructive quadrant, it isolates a central cluster, aggressively repelling outside points. Yet anger simultaneously operates as a vital, energizing force for marginal activists. Without the mobilizing fuel of anger, these marginalized groups lack the capacity to disrupt the established status quo. The consequences of an emotion depend entirely on the interpretive context and the power relations of who is articulating it. Judging an emotion strictly by its negative valence blinds observers to its functional utility in challenging political hegemony. In the digital era, social media architectures are explicitly designed to capture and amplify specific valences of emotion. This creates what researchers call toxic technocultures, environments where platform affordances facilitate the uninhibited circulation of exclusionary identities. These platforms group users through a borrowed network of associations, based primarily on shared condemnations. This algorithmic curation contributes to the filter bubble effect, siloing agreeable content and hiding disagreeable perspectives. A filter bubble is an environment in which information universes are personally tailored by algorithms and self-selective behavior. The emotional pain of communicating across these differences drives users to maintain apparent social schisms rather than resolve them. Digital architectures actively weaponize emotives to maximize ideological fragmentation. Modern political crises cannot be resolved by demanding a return to a mythical standard of purely rational discourse. Emotions are the performative building blocks of all mediated politics. This diagram illustrates the complete pipeline. Tiny affect nodes representing private biological sensations are routed through massive institutional funnels representing the modern media ecosystem. The output is organized, macro-level political movements. The true goal of modern political analysis must be to map this specific emotional architecture. True political literacy requires identifying exactly who is articulating an emotive, through which media channel, and to what ultimate political end.